Thick cigarette smoke curled like ghosts through the dim light of the GRU briefing room, buried deep beneath the snow-dusted spires of Moscow. It was late 1950, and the air hummed with the low growl of a slide projector, its fan whirring like a distant MiG engine. Ashtrays overflowed on the scarred oak table, surrounded by a circle of hardened men, veterans of Stalingrad's rubble and the Eastern Front's frozen hells. Colonel Ivan Petrovich Kuznetsov, his face etched with the scars of a Messerschmitt's shrapnel, leaned back in his chair, a fresh Belomorkanal dangling from his lips. Beside him sat Major Yuri Volkov, the sharp-eyed intelligence officer whose networks had smuggled grainy reconnaissance photos across the Sea of Japan. The projector clicked, splashing the wall with the image of the enemy, the North American F-86 Sabre, sleek, swept-winged, a silver dagger against the Pacific sky. But to these men it looked like a bloated falcon trying to mimic the Soviet hawk. Kuznetsov exhaled a plume of smoke, chuckling low. "Comrades, feast your eyes on the latest Yankee desperation, the F-86 Sabre. They call it a super fighter. Super what? Super coffin?" Laughter rippled around the table, coarse and knowing. These weren't fools. They were engineers of death, men who had built the Red Air Force from the ashes of Barbarossa. Volkov slid a dossier forward, pages stamped with red top secret in Cyrillic. "Intel from our pilots in MiG Alley confirms it. Wingspan, 11.3 meters. Empty weight, over 4.5 tons. Top speed, a sluggish 100 kilometers per hour at altitude. And get this, their service ceiling is 14,500 meters. Our MiG-15, 15,500 meters easy. Climb rate, theirs limps at 47 meters per second. Ours, 51. It's physics, plain as permafrost." He tapped the photo, finger jabbing the Sabre's nose. "Look at that cockpit. Cramped, like a capitalist's wallet. No room for the heavy guns we know they crave. And the wings, those fancy swept-back things copied from our own designs, no doubt. But heavier, slower to respond. In a dogfight, it dives in, fires its .650 calibers blind, and prays." General Alexei Romanov, broad as a T-34 turret, stubbed out his cigarette and leaned in, his voice gravel from years of shouting orders over Yak engines. "Exactly, Yuri. Why build such a beast? Our MiG is brutal simplicity. Light, powerful, VK-1 engine screaming like Stalin's will. It climbs like a rocket, perches at the edge of space, and picks its prey. These Americans, decadent dreamers. They load their jets with gadgets, radar in the nose, some whisper of a sight that does the thinking for the pilot. Bah! What pilot needs a nursemaid? Our boys have ice in their veins, forged in the Great Patriotic War. One burst from the MiG's 37mm cannon, and it's over." The room nodded, murmurs of agreement rising like steam. They pored over the specs line by line, their logic ironclad. The Sabre's J-47 engine guzzled fuel like a drunk at a Politburo feast, range barely 2,500 kilometers without drop tanks. Fragile undercarriage for rough strips. And that radar? Primitive echoes, useless above 10,000 meters where the MiG ruled. "They can't touch us up there," Kuznetsov growled, slamming a fist on the table. "MiG Alley is our alley. We hit and run, zoom climb away before their tracers kiss our tail. This Sabre, it'll wallow below, firing at shadows." A younger captain, fresh from test flights at Kubinka, piped up. "But General, the photos show modifications. Something in the gun sight housing, bulky, new. American patents mention radar ranging. Could it?" Romanov waved him silent. "Rumors, boy. Even if true, it's a crutch for soft Western flyboys. Our pilots see the target, lead it, fire. Instinct. Theirs? A machine that second guesses. It'll glitch in the cold, fog the glass. We've tested similar toys. They fail when it matters. Remember the F-80 Shooting Star? Laughable. Straight wings, no climb, picked off like geese." The projector advanced. Schematics of the Sabre's hydraulic controls, intricate as a Swiss watch. "Too complex," Volkov sneered. "One bullet in those lines and it flops like a fish. Our MiG? Redundant hydraulics, armored vitals. Built for war, not parades. Kuznetsov stood, pacing to the map pinned on the wall. Yalu River Valley, marked with red pins for MiG victories. 82 confirmed kills that month alone, against a handful of American scalps. This is no threat, comrades. It's a joke. The Yankees throw money at engineers while we throw men at victory. Numerical superiority, 1,000 MiGs rotating through China. Their Sabres? A squadron or two, pilots rotating home for R&R and psychoanalysis. Laughter erupted again, louder. Glasses of vodka raised in mock toast. To the Sabre, Romanov boomed. May it rust in hangars while our MiGs paint the sky red. The room settled, projector clicking off. Kuznetsov gathered the photos, stuffing them back into the dossier. Report to the Kremlin. The F-86 is inferior in every metric that counts. Altitude, climb, simplicity. Our doctrine holds. Let the Americans dream of glory in MiG Alley. They'll wake up to burning wrecks. Outside, the Moscow wind howled, but inside, certainty burned brighter than any engine. The Sabre was no predator. It was prey, a punchline in the great game of the Cold War skies. They dismissed it with smirks, blind to the invisible edge lurking in its gun sight. The laughter echoed long into the night, a requiem for the arrogance that would soon shatter. Deep in the heart of Antung's airfield, across the Yalu River from the churning cauldron of MiG Alley, the Soviet doctrine breathed like a living beast. It was early 1951, and the airbase thrummed with the raw pulse of war. Ground crews in fur-lined parkas swarming like ants over rows of MiG-15s, their silver fuselages gleaming under arc lights that pierced the Manchurian night. The scent of avgas and hot oil hung heavy, mingling with the sharp tang of borscht from field kitchens. Here, in this forward bastion disguised as Chinese soil, Captain Dmitry Sokolov strapped into his cockpit, the MiG's ejection seat cradling him like an old comrade. Sokolov was no green recruit. He'd flown Yaks over the Volga in '42, dodging Luftwaffe flak that turned the sky to shrapnel rain. Now, at 28, his eyes were steel gray, his hands steady on the stick. The MiG-15 was his soul-made metal, brutal, efficient, a predator honed by the motherland's unforgiving forge. VK-1 engine, a Stalin-forged copy of the British Nenni, spooling up with a throaty roar that shook the concrete. Climb rate? 51 meters per second, straight up like God's own ladder. Service ceiling? 15,500 meters, where the air thinned to a knife's edge and American jets choked on their own impotence. "Red leader, this is Tower," crackled the radio in clipped Russian. 12 Sabres reported probing the valley. Climb to Angels 45,000 feet. Engage at will. Sokolov's lips curled into a wolfish grin beneath his oxygen mask. Angels 45, 13,700 meters. The Sabre's limit was a pathetic 14,500 feet lower. No, wait. Their specs topped at 49,000 feet on paper, but in the thin air up here, it wallowed, engines gasping. Doctrine was clear. Height was king. Numerical superiority sealed it. China provided the runways, the Politburo the pilots, over 1,200 MiG sorties a day, rotating fresh aces from Vladivostok to Kubinka. Americans? A handful of squadrons, 75 Sabres total in theater. Pilots yanked home after 100 missions for combat fatigue. Soft, decadent. He firewalled the throttle, the MiG leaping skyward, wings biting the frigid air. Flanking him, his wingman, Lieutenant Pavel Grigorenko, and 4 more from the 64th Fighter Division, Soviet wolves in Chinese sheep's clothing, call signs masked as Peking flights. Up they surged, past 10,000 meters. The world below shrinking to a patchwork of frozen rivers and UN supply lines snaking toward the 38th parallel. MiG Alley, 100 miles of death funnel, flanked by Yalu sanctuaries. Hit hard, zoom away untouchable. At 14,000 meters, Sokolov leveled off, scanning the dawn-lit horizon through his ring sight. There, specks blooming into Sabres, climbing desperately from Sinuiju strips. Ugly brutes, those F-86. Straight off the drawing board, J-47 GE-7 whining at the edge of redline. Weight, 5 tons burdened, fuel tanks slung like saddlebags. Sokolov keyed the radio. Comrades visual on bandits. 12 o'clock low. Angels 30,000 feet. They climb like laden trucks. Laughter barked back, Grigorenko's voice first. Look at them strain, Captain. Our MiGs are eagles. Theirs are turkeys stuffed with gadgets. Soviet certainty wasn't blind faith. It was forged in math and blood. Simplicity ruled. The MiG's armament. One 37-meter N-37 cannon for killing blows. Two 23-meter and NR-23s for finishers. Total weight under 200 kilos. Recoil managed by the airframe's robust spine. No fragile electronics, no radar-dependent crutches. Pilots like Sokolov trusted eyes and hands, led the target by instinct, honed in endless Kubinka mock dogfights. The Sabre, 650 caliber Brownings spraying 1-200 rounds a minute. Volume over precision, suited for strafing trucks, not jousting at Mach speeds. And that rumored sight, A1CM, they called it in whispers from captured intel. A radar-ranging gimmick bolted to the gun sight, computing deflection like a Babbage engine. Complex as a New York stock ticker. One freeze at -40, one EMP flicker from flak and it blanks. Western fragility, Sokolov muttered, arming his guns. Machines for men who fear the fight. Down below, the Sabres clawed higher, but the gap held. Doctrine demanded the perch. Dive from god height, 600 kilometers per hour plunging. Fire a defiant burst, then hammer the afterburner for zoom escape. No prolonged turns where that extra ton on the Sabre told. UN rules chained the Americans. No hot pursuit over the Yalu, while Soviet MiGs vanished into sanctuary like smoke. Red flight, attack pairs, Sokolov ordered. Pavel, you take high cover. Dive on the trailers. Engines screamed as they rolled inverted, noses spearing down. The lead Sabre pair scattered, wings flashing silver, but too slow. Sokolov's Pipper settled on a Sabre's canopy, 800 meters closing fast. Thumb on the trigger, he hosed a burst, tracer streams arcing like red comets. The American jinked, but the MiG's cannons thundered, 37mm shells punching through wing root. Impact. The Sabre shuddered, fuel blooming orange, spinning earthward in a corkscrew of fire. Splash one, Sokolov whooped, pulling up hard, G-forces crushing his gut. Grigorenko mirrored, claiming another, a wing sheared clean by 23mm Fury. The alley erupted, MiGs stooping like falcons, Sabres twisting in futile evasion. 5 kills in minutes, Soviets unscathed, rocketing back to 15,000 meters, radios alive with triumph. They're breaking, running south. On the ground, debriefs reinforced the creed. Sokolov peeling off his helmet in the ops tent, vodka shots poured by cheering mechanics. See, altitude owns them. Their speed on the deck means nothing up high. Simplicity triumphs. Our MiG doesn't need parlor tricks. Major Kuznetsov, brother to the GRU colonel, nodded from the corner, scribbling notes. Precisely. Their pilots radio panic. MiGs outclimb us every time. Numerical edge, doctrinal purity. The Sabre's a paper tiger, flashy but folds under pressure. Across the Sea of Japan, reports flowed to Moscow. 92 MiG victories that week, 12 Sabre losses. The West's vaunted tech, grounded by physics. Soviet men, tough as Siberian pine, flew machines that rewarded aggression, not automation. The F-86 was a symptom of rot. Over-engineered, pilot coddling, blind to the sky's brutal truth. In cockpits and bunkers, certainty solidified like permafrost. They owned MiG Alley. The Sabre, just another Western whim, destined to burn while MiGs ruled the heavens. Laughter lingered in the mess halls, a shield against the dawn patrols ahead. But high above in the Sabre squadrons, quiet upgrades whispered. Sights calibrated in California labs, waiting for their moment. The doctrine felt invincible. It wasn't. Dawn broke bloody over MiG Alley on March 7, 1951, a frigid wedge of sky between the Yalu sanctuary and the UN meat grinder at the 38th parallel. Captain Dmitry Sokolov firewalled his MiG-15's VK-1 again, the beast snarling to life under him, compressor blades chopping the -30 air like an axe through birch. 12 flights of 64th Division MiGs lifted from Antung in waves, 72 silver arrows piercing the pearl-gray clouds, bound for perch altitude at 15,000 meters. Sokolov's squadron led the pack. Himself, Grigorenko on his wing, 4 more wolves eager for Yankee blood. Radios buzzed with the old confidence, voices thick with last night's vodka haze. Red leader, bandits inbound, 18 Sabres, Angels 35,000 feet, climbing from Pyongyang strips, Tower barked. Sokolov's gloved hand tightened on the stick. Angels 35. The Sabres were pushing their J-47s to the ragged edge, but physics was a Soviet ally. Their ceiling topped out lower in combat trim, heavy with ammo and drop tanks. They'd stall at 14,000 meters, engines coughing blue smoke. Doctrine sang in his veins, superior numbers, height advantage, hit-and-run purity. No turning knife fights where the Sabre's turning radius shone. Just stoop, savage, escape. The formation crested the ridgeline, earth a distant smear of white and brown. There they were, 18 F-86 clawing upward like salmon against a torrent, wings etched black against the rising sun. Sokolov rolled into position, Pipper framing the lead pair at 1,200 meters separation. Comrades, pairs attack. High cover holds, dive now. MiGs tipped over, gravity hurling them down at 700 kilometers per hour. A thundering avalanche of fangs. Sokolov's world tunneled to the lead Sabre. A fat-bellied brute, swept wings straining, 50 caliber muzzles winking futilely as it broke left. He led it perfectly. Instinct from 1,000 gunnery passes, squeezing the trigger. The MiG shuddered as cannons spoke. Boom, boom, boom from the 37mm. A staccato whip crack from the 23s. Tracers lanced out, stitching the Sabre's fuselage. Hits. Black smoke trailed from the engine, the American jinking wildly before nosing down in flames. Splash one, Sokolov crowed, yanking back on the stick, afterburner kicking him skyward in a 5G crush. Grigorenko mirrored the kill, his burst shredding a wingman's canopy. Below, the furball ignited, MiGs plunging through the Sabre formation like wolves through sheep, cannons belching fire. 2 more Sabres cartwheeled earthward, fuel blooming into fireballs that lit the valley like signal flares. Radios exploded in triumph. Bandit down, another. Soviet numerical edge grinding the enemy like a millstone. For a heartbeat, it played true to script. The Sabres scattered south, engines whining in protest, unable to match the zoom climb. Sokolov crested at 15,500 meters, lungs burning on pure oxygen, scanning for stragglers. They're folding, comrades. Reform high. Laughter crackled over the net. Grigorenko's bark loudest. Look at them run! Those gadgets can't save them now. But then, the glitch. A Sabre, call sign Hawk 3, piloted by Major Richard Jelly Johnson, didn't run. It hung on the edge of the fray, lower than the rest, a silver ghost at 12,000 meters. Sokolov spotted it through his ring sight, lining up for the kill shot as he stooped again. Easy prey. Broadside 900 meters closing fast. His thumb hovered on the trigger, Pipper steady. Crack, crack, crack. 650 calibers erupted from the Sabre's nose. Not a wild spray, but a laser-precise stream. Tracers marching up Sokolov's canopy like judgment from on high. Impossible. At this deflection, this range, with the MiG diving at 600 kph, math screamed miss. Lead too extreme, drop too steep. Yet the rounds punched home. First the wing root shredded, hydraulic lines rupturing in oily sprays, then the cockpit glass starred, shrapnel kissing Sokolov's cheek. Alarms wailed, engine fire. What sorcery? Sokolov snarled, chopping throttle, rolling inverted for the deck. His MiG mushed, trailing smoke, the Sabre already pulling away clean, no pursuit needed. Radio panic surged. Red 2 hit. How? Grigorenko's voice cut sharp, then static. Sokolov twisted in his seat, glimpsing horror. Grigorenko's MiG erupting in mid-zoom, a perfect 23mm deflecting burst from another Sabre nailing him dead astern at 1,000 meters. Impossible angle. The MiG had been climbing away. The alley turned to bedlam. Sabres that should have broken now twisted tighter, their noses tracking MiGs with unnatural prescience. Lieutenant Ivan Morozov, Sokolov's tail gunner, no, his number 3, dove on a fleeing Sabre, Pipper locked at 600 meters. The American didn't evade blindly. It barrel-rolled with clockwork grace and fired upward. A storm of 50s converged on Morozov's belly, ripping through the thin armor where no burst should reach. The MiG disintegrated in a fireball, debris raining like confetti. Sokolov's world spun, flames licking his boots, altimeter unwinding at 8,000, 7,000 meters. Eject? No, fight through. He spotted another Sabre low, wheeling to engage. But as he closed, the truth clawed in. Those gun sights. Not blind volume, precision from hell. The A1CM, that crutch mocked in Moscow briefings. Radar ranging wizardry, computing range, speed, deflection in split seconds, piping a glowing Pipper to the pilot's eye. No guesswork. Fire 800 meters out, hit like point blank. More MiGs tumbled. One wingman vaporized in a head-on pass. The Sabres burst, threading the eye of the needle at crossing speeds over 1600 kph. Radios choked with shock. "They're shooting through our zoom! Impossible leads!" As Tower screamed retreat. Sokolov nursed his smoking MiG over the Yalu, belly landing in a snowbank amid cheering Chinese crews turned silent at the butcher's bill. 5 MiGs down, 2 Sabres claimed. Reversal. In the debrief tent, frost-rimed faces stared at maps marked with fresh black crosses. Sokolov, bandage on his face, slammed a fist. Their sight. It sees through us. Fires where no man could aim. The laughter was gone, replaced by the hollow wind. The Sabre wasn't sluggish prey. It was a silent calculator with teeth, turning Soviet height into a shooting gallery. High above, the remaining Sabres patrolled unmolested, their secret sight blinking calmly, waiting for the next perch to crumble. The doctrine cracked, just a hairline fracture. But fractures spread. The frost in the Antung debrief tent clung like a shroud, turning breath to ghosts as Captain Dmitry Sokolov slumped against the ops table, his flight suit stiff with hydraulic oil and dried blood. The bandage on his cheek itched like an accusation, but it was the silence that clawed deepest. No banter, no vodka toasts, just the hiss of a kerosene heater battling the Manchurian wind. Maps sprawled before them, fresh red slashes marking the graveyard of 5 MiGs. Sokolov's wounded bird, Grigorenko's fireball, Morozov's debris cloud, 2 more shredded in the furball. Black crosses over Sabre kills blurred under smudged erasers. Major Kuznetsov, liaison from Moscow's laughing room, paced like a caged bear, his face the color of spent shell casings. "That sight," Sokolov rasped, voice raw from oxygen burn. "It's no crutch. It's a demon. Fired at 900 meters deflection, straight through our zoom climb. Math doesn't lie. No human eye leads that." Kuznetsov halted, slamming the table. "Impossible. Our intel said primitive radar, line of sight only, glitches in cold. You're battle-shocked, Dmitri." But the radios told no lies. Replay tapes from the tower crackled in the corner, a requiem of shattered certainty. "Red 4, break left. Missile? No. Tracers. How?" Lieutenant Anya Petrova's voice, a Stalingrad ace now, splintered into static as her MiG cartwheeled at 13,000 meters. Sokolov had seen it. Her perch-perfect stoop on a Sabre trio, cannons barking true, then reversal. A lone F-86, belly up in a lazy scissors that no MiG could match without stalling, snapped its nose skyward. The A1CM sight glowed in its cockpit like Satan's eye. Radar pinging range, 100 meters. Target speed, 650 kph closing. Angle, 35 degrees off. Deflection solved in analog whirs. A Pipper that danced ahead of her fuselage before the trigger pull. 6 Brownings harmonized. Crack, 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 crack. Petrova's wing sheared at the spar. The MiG's vaunted simplicity no match for computed death. She spun into the deck, a comet tail of 37mm rounds wasted. The tent fell quieter still, men staring at the projector as grainy gun camera footage looped. Sabre footage, smuggled via defector whispers. There it was. The secret sight. Not the crude ring and bead of their MiG ASP-1N, static as a rifleman's iron. This A1CM beast, gyro-stabilized, radar-slave to the gun sight reticle. Distance measured by FMCW echoes off the target's skin, 800 meters out. It lit the pipper frozen on the MiG's nose. Velocity gates tracked closure. Ballistic computer spat lead angle. Fire, hit. The Sabre's 50s, once mocked as pea shooters, now surgical lances. 1-200 rounds per minute converged on vitals with 80% first burst probability. No spray and pray. Precision from afar, where MiG cannons diverged at range. Word spread like trench foot through the 64th Division barracks that night. Laughter vanished, replaced by murmurs over samovars. "They're not chasing," whispered a mechanic wiping VK-1 blades. "They're waiting, calculating." Patrols shifted. No more bold perches at 15 through 500 meters. MiGs hugged 12,000 now, diving cautious. But the alley had changed. Next dawn, March 10th, 24 Sabres versus 90 MiGs. Soviet numbers should crush. Instead, shockwaves rippled. Sokolov flew wing on Colonel Viktor Kuzmin, the division's iron fist, in a massed counter. "Stay high, tight pairs," Kuzmin growled over the net, voice edged with doubt. They crested the Yalu, silver flock gleaming, Sabres below. 24 specks patient as spiders. Dive initiated, 80 MiGs thundering down, cannons primed, pippers hunting. Then the silence broke into screams. Kuzmin down, shot from below, 1-200 meters. A Sabre pair, energy managed low, didn't evade. They sliced through the formation's belly, A1CM pips locked amid the chaos. Radar ignored the melee. It saw one MiG at a time. Range 950 meters, lead pip steady despite 9G turns. Bursts lashed out. One Sabre's 50s gutted Kuzmin's engine cowl. VK-1 ingesting rounds, compressor stall exploding at mid-dive. Fireball secondary lit the sky, shrapnel peppering 3 wingmen. Panic clotted the radios. "They're predicting us! Break! Eject!" Sokolov rolled defensive, G-suit squeezing his ribs. But a Sabre ghosted onto his 6, not tail chase blind, but offset 30 degrees, sight computing the intercept. Tracers whispered past his canopy, too close, too knowing. He jinked Siberian hard, but the pipper in the American's eye didn't waver. The MiG's brutal agility, useless against a brain that foresaw it. Unilateral slaughter unfolded in sensory hell, the crack of 50 impacts like hammer blows on boilerplate. Acrid smoke blinding ring sights. Visors fogging with sweat and fear. Altimeters spinning wild as MiGs bailed formation. Explosions bloomed orange-black. Shock diamonds from afterburners futile. 8 MiGs in 10 minutes. Perch negated. Zoom climbs intercepted mid-burn. Sabres danced untouched, their J-47s purring calm, sights blinking verdicts. Tower screamed abort. "All units RTB! RTB!" Sokolov nursed home again, landing amid wreckage towed from the river. Debriefs turned to dirges. Kuznetsov, face ashen, clutched fresh telegrams. 12 MiG losses that week. Sabre scalps at 5. "Their sight turns altitude to vulnerability," he admitted. "We dive. They compute the shot before we fire." Cross squadrons, the human toll mounted. Aces cracked. One pilot catatonic, muttering of ghost leads. Another downed his own MiG in panic. The MiG-15, once brutal sovereign, now a glass cannon, light, fast, but transparent to radar eyes. The Sabre, a silent beast, its decadent gadgetry an invisible net snaring perch kings. Moscow reports flew urgent now, no smirks. GRU rooms chilled. The laughter, a memory drowned in radio static. Panic seeped in, doctrine fracturing under precision's weight. The alley whispered no more boasts, only the hollow wind and the distant whine of Sabres patrolling unopposed. The shock settled, heavy as fallout. They had met the calculator. It did not blink. Thick cigarette smoke no longer danced with levity in the GRU briefing room beneath Moscow's leaden skies. It choked now, a funeral pall hanging over the oak table scarred by frantic fists. It was late April 1951, the slide projector whirring like a death rattle. splashing ghost images of burning MiGs onto the wall. Colonel Ivan Petrovich Kuznetsov hunched forward, his shrapnel-scarred face gaunt. The Belomorkanal between his fingers burned to a stub without a single puff. Major Yuri Volkov, once sharp-eyed, now hollow-cheeked from sleepless telegrams, clutched a thick stack of reports stamped urgent in bleeding red ink. General Alexei Romanov loomed at the head, his T-34 bulk deflated, eyes bloodshot from vodka that no longer warmed. The room reeked of defeat, stale borscht from untouched trays, the metallic tang of fear sweat, the faint ozone whiff from overheated projector bulbs. No laughter echoed here. Antung's cables had arrived like body blows, 32 MiG losses in March alone, Sabre kills climbing to 18. The 64th Division's aces, Stalingrad wolves, reduced to ghosts. Sokolov's wound report. Sight computes the uncomputable. Kuzmin's final transmission. They're not fighting. They're foreseeing. Kuznetsov stubbed out his cigarette, voice a gravel whisper. Comrades, play the footage. The projector clattered to life. Grainy gun camera reels smuggled via submarine from captured F-86 wrecks. There it was, the A-1CM, that crutch they'd sneered at. No mere gadget, a predator's brain. Radar dish in the nose, spoon-shaped like a MiG's own but slaved to hellish precision. FMCW waves pulsed out, echoing off aluminum skin at 10 miles per second. Range locked at 1,500 meters. Target aspect vectorized, closure rate graphed on glowing dials. Gyroscopes stabilized the reticle against 7G turns. Analog servos crunched ballistics. Wind, gravity drop, Coriolis drift over the curved earth. The Pipper, a frozen star, anticipated the MiG's jink before the pilot dreamed it. Fire. 6 50 calibers converged. Not 1-200 wild rounds, but 200 surgical strikes per burst. Probability of kill spiking to 85% beyond visual range. Volkov jabbed the screen, voice cracking. Our doctrine, height, simplicity, numbers. But this, it turns perch into peril. We zoom at 51 meters per second, brutal, efficient. They wait low, energy conserved, sight pinging our dive path. Sokolov's report, deflection shots at 35 degrees, 900 meters. MiGy closing 600 kph. Impossible for eyes. Their pilot, Johnson they say, fires once. Hits. Romanov slammed the table, maps crumpling. Yalu pins now half black. We were wrong. Not the specs, the philosophy. Our MiG is a hammer, light, fast, forged for the great patriotic war's chaos. Instinct over instrument. But war evolved. The Sabre's no beast. It's a calculator with wings, J-47 purring patient while we burn fuel in rage climbs. They're pilots. Not soft. Augmented. That sight levels the pilot. Ice veins or not, it sees the line no man draws. Murmurs rippled. The young captain from Kubinka, silenced months ago, vindicated in silence. Intel flooded in. Sabre upgrades rolled out theater-wide. 75 airframes retrofitted by April. Kills reversed. MiG Alley claims flipped. UN aces like James Jabara tallying 10, 15. Soviet rotations strained, 1-200 sorties daily, yet losses mounted. Pilots bailed at 10,000 meters now, ring sights fogged by doubt. They're ghosts, Sokolov's latest cable read. Shoot from angles math forbids. Kuznetsov paced to the wall map, finger tracing the alley's bloody scar. The error was arrogance. We saw complexity as weakness, nursemaid for flyboys. But it was asymmetry. Our numerical edge, blunted by precision. 1 Sabre equals 3 MiGs when leads are solved. Doctrine demanded superiority in raw metrics. Climb, ceiling, cannon punch. Reality demanded foresight. The West didn't match our physics. They transcended it. Volkov slid forward blueprints pilfered from a downed Sabre's escape kit. Orders from the Kremlin. Dissect this. Copy the radar core. Simplicate our ASP-1N. Add ranging gyros. Test at Kubinka next week. Romanov's nod was bitter, a general admitting checkmate. And pilots? Train for denial, low-altitude brawls. where radar blinds and clutter. No more perches. The projector died with a click, room plunging to lamplight flicker. Outside, Moscow's spring thaw mocked them, snowmelt rushing like spilled avgas. Kuznetsov gathered the dossiers, his laugh from October a phantom. Report to the Politburo. F-86 superior not in speed or height, but mind. Soviet logic held on paper, shattered in sky. Philosophy flawed. Man alone no longer rules the cockpit. The machine thinks ahead. Romanov stood last, broad shoulders slumped. We stopped laughing in Mig Alley. The Sabre's secret sight didn't just wipe us out. It rewrote the rules. From that day, the Red Air Force chased shadows, copying the calculator that humbled us. Telegrams winged south to Antung, adapt or die. MiG-15s grounded for mods, crude radar mocks bolted to fuselages. The alley quieted, Soviet flights timid, hugging valleys where precision faltered. But the damage scarred deep. 80 more MiGs felled by summer, Sabres owning the high ground earned by silicon, not sweat. The Cold War skies tilted west, a warning etched in contrails. Underestimate the gadget at your peril. They stopped laughing and began to copy.